I feel like there's been so many great insights and words of wisdom today, and I just want to take a minute to reset the bar. I'm not going to do that. There's going to be very little wisdom here. What I'm going to do instead is take you on a little bit of a journey and tell you what's been going on in Nova Scotia over the last year, and I think it's exciting. And I have to say that on this theme of scaling up, I'm more optimistic than I've ever been about where the bioeconomy is going, and I think we've got some excellent examples in Nova Scotia. So, that being said, where's the clicker? Is it over here somewhere?
Did you take the clicker? Oh, it's right here.
All right, so the first thing that I'll get to talk about is we've rebranded. If you're familiar with our organization, we used to be the Nova Scotia Innovation Hub, and at the beginning of 2024, we rebranded to the Greenspring Bioinnovation Hub. That came on the back of a new strategy that we did that said it's time for us to attach our name more closely to our mission, and when we formed the Innovation Hub back in 2015, believe it or not, bioeconomy was just kind of a thought. It wasn't common in the lexicon at that point, and so it made a lot of sense for us to make this change. So we've rebranded, but we didn't change our vision. Our vision is still very much around this view of a cluster of innovation-driven, sustainable bioeconomy businesses, operating and providing benefit to Nova Scotia and Nova Scotians. And I've shown a few examples of those from around the world and around the country and even closer to home. And I'll go into some more of those as we get a little further along. But I mean, I think this is what we're all trying to achieve, right? Is this cluster of businesses that are creating low-carbon, bio-based products. And here's why we're trying to do that. The typical economic development, metrics that one would see. But what I love about the bioeconomy is it's just not that, right? It is a range of social, a range of economic, and a range of environmental benefits that we're trying to achieve in the bioeconomy. And this is a slide of the projected impacts of the clients we work with as they commercialize and build out projects. What's the impact in Nova Scotia? So a little bit about us, or closing on a little bit about us. What do we do? The first is Greenspring Bioinnovation Hub is an advocate for the bioeconomy in Nova Scotia. We spend a lot of our time talking with our stakeholders and Nova Scotians about the benefits of the bioeconomy. And then there are, two other things that we try and do. And I would say that when we started the hub, we had some great advice from a number of advisors, and the feedback was, look, you're never going to be the richest jurisdiction in North America, so you're never going to have the volume of public money that it takes to really grow a bioeconomy. You're never even going to be the wealthiest province in the country, and so you need to think about other things that bring value to the bioeconomy. And I think it was Don Roberts who said to us, he said, you need to think about how to be really good at being small. And so we took that to heart and we said, well, what can we do that will separate ourselves? And we focused on this notion of being really good at data. And so we have a lot of really good data on feedstocks, on markets, on brownfield sites that we can bring to bioeconomy projects as they're thinking about setting up in Nova Scotia. And then we said, let's do what Mark talked about, which let's build a really good ecosystem. And so we don't do any of this on our own. We work closely with partners like Invest Nova Scotia, like ACOA, like the Reassurance Center, like the Department of Natural Resources and Renewables. We work closely with a number of national partners as well. And our approach is, let's try and rack our collective arms around these bioeconomy projects to help lift them. And then, of course, it always helps to have a little bit of money. And so we do have some modest pots of funding that we can bring to projects with our clients that are critical to their growth pathway in the province. So that's what we do. So what's up in Nova Scotia? What's interesting to learn about? A few things, if you're not familiar with Nova Scotia, we're the largest province in Atlantic Canada. Halifax is our capital. It's the largest capital city in Atlantic Canada, just over 400,000 people. We're highly educated. 58% of Nova Scotia's population has a post-secondary education. That's by virtue of having several universities and a really good community college system. Our largest exports are rubber, because we have 3 Michelin tire plants. Seafood, because we are in the heart of the Atlantic Canadian lobster fishery, and forest products. Our forest industry has gone through a lot of change over the last few years, but is still a major contributor to the economy. Some quick facts. We're almost completely surrounded by water and are known as Canada's ocean playground. The Northumberland Strait in between Nova Scotia and PEI claims to have the warmest waters in the summer, north of the Carolinas. I have a cottage there, and I can tell you that it is quite warm. And Halifax is Canada's 4th fastest growing city, according to immigration.ca. Quick question, anybody know which is the 1st fastest growing city in Canada? Any guesses?
Barrie, Ontario.
It's not in Ontario. Not in Saskatchewan. Not in Calgary. Fastest growing by percentage is Charlottetown in Prince Edward Island. 2nd fastest growing is Moncton in New Brunswick. And the 3rd fastest growing is Woodstock in Ontario. And so 4th, we landed 4th on the list. So the secret's out, is my point, is that Atlantic Canada has become a place to be. So we've done a few other things in 2024. The first is we hosted Atlantic BioCon along with our partners, Ignite, Research New Brunswick, and Nova, and the Assurance Center. Just mind-blowing how well that went. We sold out of everything, registration, our trade show, our bioeconomy site tours, even our student poster competition was oversubscribed. And this is a picture of Megan giving me the "I told you that would happen" look, Rod. And so we were quite pleased with BioCon. I'm pleased to tell you that there's a plan for a 2025 BioCon. I think it's going to go into New Brunswick and be hosted by Research NB. I think we're looking at St. John as potential location. So stay tuned for more on that. Jordan talked about bioeconomy development opportunity zones a little bit earlier. We in Nova Scotia received an A rating for a zone, a BDO zone, in southwestern Nova Scotia based on sawmill residuals and low-grade roundwood. We were thrilled to receive that rating, and I have to tell you, it was an amazing process we went through. We worked closely with some municipal partners. We had never done that before, and it's been a great experience working with the municipalities of Queens and Chester and Lunenburg, as well as the town of Bridgewater. And that collaboration is carried on as we continue to work together and build projects in the bioeconomy in that part of the province together. So it was a great experience, very pleased that we did that. I'll note that, the BDO zone recognized a few things that I think are important about southwestern Nova Scotia. The first is we have a really strong sawmill partner down there in Freeman Lumber, the largest mill in southwestern Nova Scotia, and they've made significant investments in modernizing their operations. It is a state-of-the-art facility. They've invested over $40 million over the last 5 years in doing that. And so that facility is recognized as a feedstock supplier, but also they have the vision of building a bioeconomy park at that site. And so tremendous partner in that part of the province. Additionally, the province has implemented ecological forestry on Crown land. This is, if you're not familiar with it, is I would say a revolutionary kind of forest management perspective that divides the forest into zones, conservation, and matrix management or low-touch forestry, as well as tree farming. And so it's not been done, to our knowledge, at this scale anywhere else in the world. So a couple of really kind of interesting things about our BDO zone. We've also continued on with our GreenShoots partnership. This is a partnership we do with Invest Nova Scotia and BioEnterprise. It's a competition-based partnership where we bring in early-stage bioeconomy, ag tech, and clean tech companies, and we provide them, or the winners of the competition, with guidance and funding. And since 2020, we've done 9 rounds, the most recent we completed in September. And since then, we've over our 9 rounds. We've awarded 41 early-stage Nova Scotia-based ventures with guidance and money. It's an investment of $1.35 million by the partners, and so pleased to say that over 70% of those have gone on to raise private equity, over $65 million in total. GreenShoots can't take all the credit for that. As I said earlier, we take a very much an ecosystem approach to helping build these businesses, but GreenShoots has been a valuable piece to the ecosystem. You may know that fermentation sector is doing well in Nova Scotia on the basis of companies like Mara Renewables and Nova, who are doing tremendous work in that area. And one of the things we learned about, Mark talked about, human resource challenges. One of the things we learned about is that there's a lack of fermentation technician ability in just in general, and particularly in Nova Scotia. So with our partners at Nova and the Reassurance Center, and with funding from Upskill Canada through the Pallet Skills Program and the Nova Scotia Department of Labour, Skills and Immigration, we built a training program to recruit, train, and then match with employers fermentation technicians. We completed our first cohort over the summer, and our second cohort is now underway, and actually we'll graduate those here on this Friday, so I'm on my way there after this. It's been a great experience so far. That first cohort, we found jobs for everybody, only except one. So we're almost 100% employment, which Upskill Canada and Pallet Skills just love. Continuing on the fermentation theme, the Reassurance Center, based in Sydney, a couple of years ago announced an expansion to build the first of its kind in Canada, a 10,000-liter fermenter. That project is almost complete. Beth tells me that it will be commissioned here in January of 2025. That's a tremendous asset to the ecosystem, allowing early-stage fermentation companies to test their technology at 10,000 liters, which is a lot closer to commercial than where our current capacity is at in Nova Scotia of around 1,000 liters. So great work that they've done in bringing that facility to fruition. We're also starting to see, to the point of scaling up, some amazing projects advancing, and one of them is Viterra Renewables. They've been looking at doing a project in Nova Scotia in partnership with a sawmill partner, and over the last year, they have completed a trial with Michelin for their low-carbon fuel oil product. It was tremendously successful. Michelin was very pleased with the outcome of that trial, and that bodes well, I think, for the launch of that facility in Nova Scotia. So we were quite excited about that, and I thought it was just a tremendous show of leadership that Michelin were there at the table, to support that. We've also had, serious interest from others. There's an Irish company called the Simply Blue Group that has done most of its projects in solar and wind, but has announced a feasibility study for a project located in the eastern part of Nova Scotia to produce sustainable aviation fuel using a mix of green hydrogen and biomass from the forest sector. They purchased the old Goldboro site. Some of you may remember that was the former location of a liquefied natural gas export terminal, or that was the plans for that site. So it's a great site. It's located close to Strait of Canso, which gives it good access to offshore wind if we can ever get there, but also good access to onshore wind as well. So we're quite excited by that. Simply Blue Group, a very capable outfit, have built a team and an office in Nova Scotia and Halifax to move that project forward. And if you followed the Nova Scotia forest sector and the journey of the Northern Pulp Mill, this was a mill that was closed in 2020 because of a complex, I would say, political situation that I won't try and explain. But as part of the settlement with the government, they have begun a feasibility assessment on restarting that operation in the western part of the province, located in the Liverpool area, which is, interestingly, the former location of the Bowater Mersey newsprint mill. And so that would be a significant advance and boon to the forest industry if it were to occur. Right now, we've got a significant surplus of wood fiber available in Nova Scotia, and this would flip that on its head. They have, big demands for potential consumption of wood fiber. The market would go from, being in a surplus situation to having, insatiable demand very quickly. The good news about this, we don't know exactly what's going to happen with it right now, but the good news is the feasibility assessment as part of the settlement needs to be completed in March of 2025. And so very quickly we'll learn the fate of Paper Excellence and their plans for the Liverpool area. Fingers crossed, that would be an amazing project that would revitalize the forest sector in that part of the province. Last but certainly not least, we had a insect farm launch its first commercial facility just outside of Halifax in the Raggett Lake Business Park. And so this is Overland Agri-Sciences facility. It's 108,000 square feet. It'll produce 3,500 tons per year of insect protein for pet food and livestock feed applications. And so this was, this is a business similar to what Mark had done. It started at an early stage, built a pilot plant in Nova Scotia, just outside of Halifax, not too far from where this facility is located, proved out the technology, built the market, and eventually got us to the point where he was able to build a full-scale commercial facility. So that's kind of my quick rapid-fire update, some closing thoughts. It's too early to declare success, but scale-up does appear to have started in Nova Scotia. The theme of the conference, Jeff, around scaling up, I'm more optimistic than I've ever been before about the future of the bioeconomy from what I'm seeing in Nova Scotia. And I would have to say that the capacity and sophistication of the developers has increased. I like to joke, we used to get excited about 2 people and a shake flask in a garage, right? And now when I look at the types of project developers we're working with and their capacity and their ability, I'm just blown away. And there's still a lot of hurdles to clear, but I think we've got good forward momentum. Not without its gaps, though. There's a couple of things that I think we've heard about today that I just want to point to, and I don't have answers. I'm just saying as an ecosystem, we should be thinking about these things. One of them is accelerating customer engagement, and that trial I pointed to with Michelin and Viterra, that was tough to do. It was tough to bring Michelin to the table. They're, conservative business, not unlike a bunch of businesses we have in Canada. They, had a need, which was good. And they also saw an amazing partner with Viterra, but it took a lot of time, effort, energy, and cost in order to make that happen. But we need to be able to make those things happen in order to facilitate the growth of these bioeconomy businesses, because, as somebody once told me, at the end of the day, the customer pays for everything. And on that point, late-stage capital, we've heard some conversations about this already today, and I divide this into 2 kind of pieces. The first is, at high TRL levels, but not quite commercial, CapEx has gone up, but risk has not gone to zero, and there seems to be a lack of, funding opportunities for, bioeconomy ventures at that stage. And so addressing that, I think, will be important, but it's also important to address the development capital pieces. Here, the risk is lower, but there's still, a need for some modest amounts of capital that can be challenging to find, particularly in this investment climate. So with that, I see I'm out of time. I apologize, Jeff, but I imagine you'll want to move us along. I'm around. I'll be drinking scotch, so come see me if you have any questions.